Good day and welcome. My name is Nina Austin, and I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. And I decided that I wanted to put together a package, a presentation, if you will, with all the bells and whistles from a different type of perspective. As you can see on the screen, this is a series on grief. Understanding grief, what it is, how it moves, and how we carry it forward without regretting. Again, my name is Nina E. Austin, licensed clinical professional counselor, and as we're going to journey through this, I'm going to stumble over my words because I'm a real person. So for the purpose of this video, I wanted to talk about something that we often don't talk about, but we all are faced with, and it's grief, loss. We all have to meet our proverbial maker, which would be the end of life. And with that being said, the fear of it, the not knowing, is a big portion of what it is, along with what you can anticipate experiencing, as well as what the stages are, all the things. So I'm going to go through that today. On this process of the journey, I want to go over this PowerPoint, and bear with me. My nerves are showing. I can already see them. So let's get going. This is a series on grief. It's a 4-part series, and I want to tell you up front, I built it. I created it because there is a deficit, and our community has a way that we do things, um, and it often leaves a lot of places untouched. Some of this talk is going to be straight clinical. I'm going to come straight from what I've learned academically. Fact sheets, criteria, 12-week course that I've put together, and I run. And some of it's going to be just me talking. As you can see, I'm pretty good at that. Both of those are on here, and they're here on purpose. Here's what I need you to know before we go anywhere. Grief is personal. It's not linear. And nobody in here, including me, gets to tell you that there's a correct way to feel about loss. We're going to go into what grief actually is, the 5 stages, what everybody gets wrong about them, what makes grief harder, time, the way we talk about it, and then something structured you can actually do. Let's get into it. Slide number 2 is facing the foundation, what grief actually is. Grief is a response to the loss of something that held meaning to you. As you can see that on the screen here, I'm going to break down what that means. So let's define it, because people throw this word around. Grief is the feeling associated with a significant loss, a person, a place, a thing that meant something to you. Now, significant, sit on that word with me. Significance is subjective. What's trivial to one person can wreck another person, and neither one of them is wrong. So nobody ranks your loss. And I mean that both ways. Don't let somebody else do it to you, and don't do it to yourself. Again, nobody gets to tell you how great or how small the loss is. You define that yourself. Now, here's a distinction we should be making, and mostly don't. Bereavement is the state of having lost someone. Grief is the reaction to it. People use those two words, and they're not the same. They're just not. Grief is not just sad. It's emotional. It's physical. It's cognitive. It's behavioral. It's social. It's cultural. And for those that believe, it's also spiritual. It's your whole self responding. One more. Grief belongs to the person left behind. Nobody has ever died and come back to tell us about how it went. Again, grief belongs to the people that are left behind. Now, as you can see on the screen, there's a video. I put this video in there because this grief experience is a part of just some personal journey that I've come across as a TikToker. So this is a clip, and I have a few other clips in our presentation from my actual TikTok of me just coming off the top of my head talking about some things, because as I scroll too, I see things that people are talking about and what they're doing. And then after you watch the video, I will discuss a little bit about it. And here you go. Death is not a mystery. It is not a medical disaster. I promised some of y'all that I would do a grief series. So before we even get into this, please go back and watch that video. Oh my God.
Such a great explanation. Okay. Go watch the video. Let's go watch it together. Okay, did you guys watch it? Pardon my face, my eyes, and all that stuff. I'm waking up and I'm studying for the doctorates. Well, not studying. I'm actually reading. I'm trying to read the information so that it may make it easier for me to do this writing that I have to turn in this week. But grief. Grief is the process that, for lack of better words, is the process that you experience when you have a loss. And it's not always related to death, but in this circumstance, this instance, we are talking about death. Losing someone else. Because we can't talk about losing ourselves, because if we die, we go. So ain't nobody lived through that to tell it, okay? So it's for the person that's left behind. And there are stages of grief. I'm going to list them here. It's 5, but sometimes categorically when you do the research, you may get a list of maybe 10. But these are the top 5 here. And in those 5, they break down into various categories. And what I want to make clear is none of the categories go in direct order. There is no gauge on the severity from mild to severe. There's also no kind of predictability of what part you're in or when it's going to manifest, how long it's going to last even. Because one thing I know for sure is how you're impacted by the loss is directly related to the relationship you had to the person, whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether it was somewhere in different. Some people have complicated grief where it's not only grief of a loss that was wonderful and positive. There's a loss, an anger, a rage. There's some unfinished business in the complicated grief thing. There may even also be a very strained negative relationship, but because they were in your life all day, every day, there's kind of a conflict between your sadness and your anger and relief. I'm going to go into the definitions and things later as we progress through the grief series. And for my people specifically, I would like to maybe even dig into some of the things that we do that are traditional, but also harmful in practice, where, some of the veneration that we do, some of the shrining, meaning that we're leaving their memories up, the memorabilia. For some people, certain things are actually negative and may be causing more grief. Also, the expectation that there is sadness with loss. Because everybody, to be fair, doesn't experience sadness when people die. There is, for some, relief. Some people kind of have been counting the days. Now, depending on your religious background, there's also different associations and expectations and thoughts and theories behind all of that. And I want you guys to take in mind all of the things surrounding it. Are you an avoider? Do we think they have gone to a better place? Do you think they've expired? Do you think they're living somewhere in another animal? What is your perspective on loss and what happens to the person? Are they done? Just like they were born on one day, the last day is at the end. We don't know that. And I believe that all of those factors do play a part in how you experience grief. So be looking forward to the rest of this series. Again, we'll be doing a lot of breaking down. I will be discussing tools that can be useful. And I will be sharing this with subscribers first, and then I will release it to the public later. Have a great day.
Death is not a mystery. This part of the recording is for those of you that are watching online. This will be a great time for you to jot down questions that you have that may come up later. And also, if you are watching this from the website, you can type me a message. You can email me via this site or drop it in the chat to ask more questions, as well as to register to take the 12-week course. Okay, now that we've done that station identification, so there it is. Grief is the deep, poignant distress and anguish caused by significant loss. Most of the time, that's the death of somebody you love, but also follows a life change, a breakup, losing your independence. That last part is where we're going next, because if loss is bigger than death, and it is, then grief is bigger than death too. Death is not a mystery. My apologies. This technology is going to be the bane of my existence. And as we already know, I'm a little bit of a comedian, so we're going to giggle a little bit in the midst of the pain. It kind of takes the pressure off. All right. The scope of loss. I want to open this up because when I say grief, most people picture a funeral. That's not the whole thing. There's variations here when it comes down to grief. And yes, some of them are more painful, more intense, more close to you, but they're all still rated in the loss and can be experienced in the grieving process. One, losing a child, the loss of a child, any means. That's one of the most profound losses we can acknowledge, and I'm naming it first for a reason. The loss of a parent. And I'm including watching your parents suffer through illness, through hospice. That grief starts way before anybody dies or passes away, whichever verbiage you choose. Losing a job. Somebody built a career, earned the accolades, did everything right, and then lost a position because of somebody else's decision, a budget cut, a political thing that they had nothing to do with. That person is grieving. We just don't call it that. So they walk around thinking something's wrong with them. Childhood friendships. Well-meaning parents move across the country and that child loses their entire social world in one weekend. Then the child withdraws, tantrums, won't engage. And everybody's asking what's wrong with this kid. Nothing's wrong with that kid. The kid is grieving. An attachment. A child loses their Buzz Lightyear, the actual one, and you hand them a brand new one, and it doesn't fix it because it's not the same one. That's real grief. Don't laugh at that. If you've got time, ask the room. What have you grieved that wasn't a death? Then be quiet and let someone answer. As a matter of fact, if you're playing along at home, take a moment. If you're watching it with a friend or a family member, if nobody's around, send somebody a text message and ask them about that, just to see what kind of answers you get back. We've made it to part 3 of this series. Definitions and examples. Now, we just spent some time talking about that loss is bigger than death. This is the episode where I actually define it and give you examples behind it. I'm going to play another video, and again, I do have a sense of humor, so if you find somewhere in there that you want to laugh, go right ahead. We're going to talk about what grief actually is, what it means, and this video is going to give a description early in the morning, I guess, when my brain is doing all the thinking and running around the mountain. I just wanted to share with you, so enjoy.
Ooh, this phone ain't about to worry me half to death. Hold up. I know how y'all be acting about my presentation. Ain't nobody got time for all that. Look, I forgot. And I did a great recording for you guys a second ago. I don't know where it's at. So here we are again. Grief. the grief series. That's what we own. You see how I put that up there? That's what it is. If you look down below, it's going to be in a series. If you click it, you can get the whole series and most of my videos. If you look down below, look down right there. Bam. It tell you it's a series. Click the series. You can watch every last video in the series. Yes. I'm sleepy. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay. Grief series. I forgot to tell y'all what the definition was. You probably could Google it, but here we are. That's the definition. Y'all see that right there? It's short and sweet. Grief is the feelings associated with a significant loss. I don't know why they put significant in there like that, as if you can lose a person, place, or a thing, and that can be significant to you. Like a little kid losing their toy, their favorite toy. They went somewhere and their Buzz Lightyear got left and they can't replace it and they are inconsolable and now they're having private conversation with Buzz and you can't seem to get that baby right. You wouldn't try to buy them a new Buzz, but that ain't their Buzz. That is grief. Y'all see me smiling and grinning? Because grief is something we don't talk about because we don't talk about loss. We don't talk about death. We don't talk about it enough. And being that we don't talk about loss and the importance of loss and the emotional attachment to it, we often dismiss people's grief. And we often say and do things that is ridiculous to say to somebody that has had a loss. Mother loses a child. Whatever means. They're in a better place. Apparently, you've never lost anybody because you couldn't fix your mouth to say that. Or you're in a heavy delusion. Oh, that's where the therapist comes in. My job is to determine if you're functioning okay. With grief affecting us in ways, it's also my job to determine if the length, duration, meaning how long you're experiencing the symptoms and how intense they are. If they go past a certain amount of time and you can't seem to get back to reasonable functioning after a loss, that's when it becomes diagnosable, which most of my people got a problem with. They ain't about to be putting no labels on me. Baby, I ain't got to label you. You're out here showing it. It's out there. It's right there. Now, I think I'm talking lightly about the grief because I'm so mad that I lost the original video because it was so damn good. But in this series, we are going to talk about the stages of grief, what makes it diagnosable, what things you should be looking for if you are grieving the loss of a person. What is inspiring this is because there's been a lot of loss in my life and the lives of my friends, family, people that I know. And often what ends up happening is we have the seasonal experiences. Like we live in a country that forces people to celebrate and honor and do things in a way. Like yesterday was Mother's Day. Our country don't care nothing about nobody's feelings because there's a lot of people in our country that don't have positive experiences with their alive mother. There are people that have buried a mother. There are people that don't even know who their mother is because they were adopted. And all of those people were wrapped up in grief yesterday and probably still some grief today. Some people have actually laid their parents to rest because they were ill and they had to go through the whole suffering of hospice. But then somebody last year lost their job, their good job that they went to college for, that they've received accolades, all because somebody swung a pen because they feel threatened. They went and ruined somebody else's life. That person is grieving as well. That little kid, they were going to the school, they had a lot of friends. But because their parents decided to move on up to the east side and they thought they were doing the best thing for them, you just took every friend that your kid had away. Now they're grieving. Now they're sad. Now you're a jovial baby. They used to laugh and play and run and be excited and draw pictures and always want to color. You can't get them to come out their room half the time
or they act out. Every time you go somewhere, they falling all out. Or if you go to a place where there's a play area, it's like the tantrum they have to go back to the car is unreasonable. They're grieving. I hate that I can't give y'all these perfect scenario type presentations because that's probably not who I am. But if you hang out with me long enough, you will learn a lot. May make you think about some things. And yeah, you can buy a self-help book all across the platforms on grief. But I just wanted to connect you and make you think a little bit as we go through the series. So, grief series, click down below if you want to see the whole series. It's a work in progress. Some of my presentations will be completely clinical and I will be reading from a script that I put together myself or reading from a worksheet. But over the series, I want y'all to be acclimated and understand some of the stuff that maybe gets overlooked. All right, have a great rest of your day. Bye. Ooh,
This phone
phone
about
about
to
to
worry
worry
me.
me. As you can already tell, we are having such fun doing this recording. Can't transition between there. So yeah, just keeping it a stack. We are messing it up, and this is just the way it's going to be, and I'm probably not going to edit it. So if we're here, we are here. We are now on the map, not the route. We're going to talk about the 5 stages of grief. And as you can see on the screen, they're not in an order, even though they're listed in an order, they do not happen this way. 1, denial. 2, anger. 3, bargaining. 4, sadness. 5, acceptance. Now let's go through them. Everybody's heard of the 5 stages, and almost everybody has it wrong. These are a map, not a route. They give you words for what you're feeling. They are not a checklist you're behind on. So there is no ranking, there is no place, they go circular. They go around. They bend, they pop up. No rhyme or reason. So let me clear up 3 things right now. There's no fixed order, as I mentioned. There's no severity scale, mild to severe. There's no timeline for when they show up or how long they stay. Depending on which source you pull, this list goes up to 10 categories. Denial. This can't be real. Anger. And I want to flag this one because anger is the unpredictable one. It shows up whenever it wants, however it wants, and it usually lands on somebody who had nothing to do with your loss. Your coworker, the person at the counter, your kids. Bargaining. This one sounds like if I hadn't been there, if I hadn't called, I'm saying it out loud so you can catch yourself doing. If I had the coulda, woulda, shouldas, if I had been more around, all of the circling back, if I had just prayed longer, if I had just showed up on time, if I hadn't broke up, all the reasons that you tell yourself trying to navigate that feeling. Sadness, depression, the heaviness, missing them, the tears, all of the melancholy, the thought of them. And certain times, even certain things can remind you a smell, a scent, a song. Acceptance. Now, acceptance is not approval. Nobody is asking you to be okay with it. Acceptance is integration. It's merging it into your life. If someone is passed on, it's accepting that they're now gone and accepting that they are a memory. What type of memory? That's up to you. What type of allegiance? That's up to you. What kind of way that you want to keep them? That's up to you. Or maybe even dismissing them from your memory. That's up to you. And you can skip one, repeat one, or feel for them right before lunch. Again, remember, the stages of grief are just here to define what you're feeling. They're not exact. They're not, this has to happen before this, because sometimes they all might be mashed together, just depending on what the loss was, when it was, how old you were, where you were. All of those factor in. There is no single right way to grieve. Let me say this again, especially to my folks, from my folks. Maybe it ain't no special way to do it. And I know. Shh. I know. We've all been taught and told a lot of things. But the truth is, there is no right way to do it. And there's no wrong way either. All right. Now let's slow down right here. This is the permission slide, and some people in the room need it. There is no single right way to grieve. Some people have to let it out. Some people go completely silent and handle it by themselves. Both of them are grieving, and neither of them are wrong. Sadness is not required. I'm going to say it again. Sadness is not required. Being numb is valid. Anger, valid. Relief, valid. Especially if that relationship was hard. All right, here's the numbers. About 1 in 3 people respond to loss with resilience or with relief. That means they bounce backness is real tough. They don't nothing hold them down. And then there's the other people that have suffered as a result of the other person. And the fact that they've passed away, a weight is lifted. I know it sounds rude, but hey, we're not here to judge anybody's experience. I'm just here to educate, okay? All right. Now, those resilient people or the relieved people doesn't mean that they didn't love the loved one. Although if they didn't, that's theirs, and they have a right not to feel what you think they should feel for a person. And that does not mean that they didn't love them or love them any less. For those that did have it, it's just their expression. It does not mean their grief is unfinished or that something is wrong with them. Everybody has a right to express and feel and experience loss in a way that validates and honors them, even if it does not work for you. And this part is for the family. Stop judging people for grieving different than you. She's not crying. He wants to celebrate instead of a funeral. They're wearing white or red because that's what their culture honors. None of that means that they don't care. You don't know what's happening inside of somebody else. Even if they're telling you, you still don't know. The biggest thing shaping how grief hits is the nature of the relationship. Positive, negative, or somewhere in between. And what you believe matters too. What you think happens after somebody dies changes how you carry it. One thing I'll say gently, and it's about my own community, the shrining. Yeah, basically putting up baby altars and memorabilia and significant dates and times, keeping everything out, the pictures, the memories on display every single day. For some people, that helps. But for some people, it keeps the wound open. Now, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm asking you to notice which one is doing it for you. Which way? What way works best for you? Just because that's what Big Mama did. Big Mama put the graduation picture up on the mantle, and every year for the birthday we set out a party candle. And what? Just because that's how somebody else does it doesn't mean that that works for you, and doesn't mean that it's healthy for you. Okay? All right. Now let's look at the fact sheet. This is the clinical. I'm going to go over the fact sheet, but I'm going to let the video do the talking for you. The fact sheet is basically breaking down grief, going over definitions, defining certain things. And in that, it's the backbone of everything we're doing, what we're talking about. Okay? So I'm going to play the video and let the video do the talking. And hopefully this style helps the people that need to have visuals. For the people that can't follow along this way, you can watch the video. You can also play it back if you're watching from online. I think what you'll have to do is rewind. So here we go.
Hello, welcome to week 2
the grief series,
part 2. I don't know what we're going to call it, but yes. All right. Part 2. I'm going to go over the grief fact sheet. This is a document that I basically have a bunch of PDF folders segmenting different subject matter that's pretty common that people show up to treatment for, and of course grief is one of them. As we discussed before, the stages of grief, which are sadness or depression, denial, bargaining, trying to make sense of things. If I had been there, if I had called, that kind of thing. Acceptance, and I don't know how anger always leaves me, but anger. And I guess that's the reason why it came up like it came up, because anger just floats around. You never know when it's going to show up. You never know how it's going to show up. As a matter of fact, you don't know how any of the pieces of what the grief process looks like is going to show up. But when they do, we have to have an understanding, some strategies in place. You got to know if you're okay, if you're not okay, how deep it is, if it's acute, do you need treatment, do you need to go to the doctor, all those things. So looking at the fact sheet, we'll just start here, and I'm going to read it off. Grief hurts, but it can be helpful. The process of grieving often involves sadness, anger, loneliness, and other painful emotions. However, grieving can help you come to terms with loss and move forward in life while still cherishing memories of your loved ones. Everyone grieves differently. Although others may have opinions about how to grieve correctly, your grief is yours, and yours alone. Some people need to express their grief while others prefer to process in silence. Some feel anger, while others feel sadness, numbness, or relief. Everyone has different reactions to loss and different needs during the grieving process. The circumstances of a loss have a major impact on grief. Deaths that are unexpected, traumatic, or stigmatized, such as unaliving, can't even use that word on this app. That's how bad the stigma is with that. Can complicate the grieving process. Let me say that again. Deaths that are unexpected, traumatic, or stigmatized can complicate the grieving process. Personal factors such as a history of mental illness or strained relationship with the deceased can also contribute to the difficulties. Grief does not have a set time frame. Ming, 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 ming. Grief does not have a set time frame. Grief can last for weeks, months, or years. It may come and go around holidays, anniversaries, or major life events. Or it may also be in the background. However, grief does tend to lessen in intensity over time. And let me highlight that one more time. Grief does tend to lessen of intensity over time. One more time. Grief does tend to lessen in intensity over time. That means the hurt will start to diminish. You won't forget them. So you don't need to continue to hurt to keep them. And I said that for a reason. You'll hear about it later on down the line in the series. All right. Grief may contribute to other problems. Grief increases the risk of developing other health problems, mental illness, and relationship difficulties. This is especially true if the death was traumatic, if you feel guilt about the death, or if grief is prolonged. It's okay to seek help. Support from family and friends can prevent grief from growing out of control. I'm putting heavy quotations around that because we know, especially in our community, some people just aren't healthy enough to handle or help you when you're going through a crisis or a trauma, a loss, anything outside of happy day. Some people just are not equipped. Although grief will improve over time for most, this isn't always the case. When grief is especially debilitating or long lasting, support groups, therapy, and other resources may be beneficial. And diagnostically, criteria wise, we have variations in the grief diagnostic process. Severity is a part of that criteria. Not everyone experiences significant distress. Ding, 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 ding. Not everyone experiences significant distress. And I'll put this right here in a little bubble. This is for those family members that tend to get mad at other people because they're not grieving in the way that they assume that they should. Like, they might not be crying. They may feel like celebrating and having a good time, partying, wearing old clothing. That might be an honor or a good way for them. But other people have a traditional way of processing and handling grief. Sadness is always in it. Not everyone experiences significant distress. About 1 in 3 people respond to a loss with resilience or relief. Feeling this way does not mean that you don't care or that you love the person any less. Nor does it mean that your grief is unfinished or that you have a problem. Moving on doesn't mean forgetting. You can continue to live your life. Say this one more time. Moving on doesn't mean forgetting. You can continue to live your life, have new experiences, and form new relationships while continuing to love the person that you lost. The goal of grieving isn't to forget, but rather to figure out how you would like to remember while moving forward. That is the end of this actual piece of the series. I'm going to break every part down faced with the stages of grief. I'm also going to talk about the severity and when outside help is absolutely mandatory. And then other options, as well as certain things and ways to search out therapy and treatment. Even in my own practice, I have a series that follows a 12-week process for those that are showing up to session to process grief. But even in treatment, sometimes grief exposes undiagnosed mental health challenges as well. So with that being said, we'll end here and stay tuned. I am going to share this in a variety of places, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
And as we can see, that was the stages of grief and what it does to your body, your mind, makes it more complicated. And there is, again, no timeline. There's also some associated health risks that come with prolonged or traumatic loss. And we will dive into some of that later on in the video. And right now, I think it'll be a good time to take a little bit of a break. And we will come back in a second. Hello, welcome to week 2. Here we go. I was supposed to be pausing. Some circumstances make this significantly harder. These are the reasons that I've noted so far. I want you to know going into this that some things are a lot heavier. When death was unexpected or traumatic, that complicates grief so severely because nobody wakes up in the morning expecting not to see somebody later. So unexpected loss or traumatic deaths tend to rank higher in the intensity. When the loss is stigmatized, that means, as we have seen even with social media, you can't say suicide because it's a stigmatized loss. These are the ones that people tend to whisper about and judge. And it's really sad. People with a personal history of mental illness. makes a loss more complicated. And of course, strained relationships. These are the ones where, especially child parentals, those close knit family, blood related relationships that are complicated, estranged, those make grief a little bit more challenging, a little bit more difficult. Um, and feeling guilt about the death, especially if maybe you were an emergency contact, or you feel like if you had just shown up, you could have prevented it. Those unanswered questions, those coulda, woulda, shouldas, always complicate grief. And the grief shows up, the complication shows up as a tension in you, sadness, anger, and sometimes relief. And that relief leads to the guilt, which cycles you right back around and creates the more complicated grief. Underneath it, unfinished business, something you didn't get a chance to say, something they didn't get to say. Now, let me say something about the hard relationships. If somebody was in your life all day, every day, even when it was bad, you're still going to grieve. That's not you being confused. It's normal. I do have to name the health piece. Grief raises your risk for other health problems, mental illness, and relationship challenges, especially when the death was traumatic, when there's guilt, or when the grief just keeps going. Family support keeps grief from escalating in certain circumstances, but I'm going to be straight with you. Not everybody in your circle is equipped to hold you through a crisis. That's not shade at them or at yourself. It just means that you might have to look outside the house. Now, grief comes in more than one form, and there are several definitions on the screen. Um, Anticipatory, disenfranchised, prolonged, traumatic, cumulative, absent, or inhibited. And I'm going to break them down. Keep the definitions simple. Anticipatory grief is grieving before it happens. Disenfranchised is something that's typically unrecognizable, is kind of waiting for something to happen and it doesn't come. Prolonged persists and it impairs. That means it extends. So it kind of goes past what is traditionally normal. And it depends on the relationship. I'm not trying to put a timeline on it, but I'm saying, let's say you lost somebody 10 years ago and you are just sad about it 10 years later as it was the day of. That's prolonged. And I know that the example seems far-fetched, but yes, there are people suffering just as if their loss happened today and it's been 20 years. Traumatic, sudden, violent, witnessed. So traumatic loss, you could witness happening. It could happen in front of you, it can happen to you, or it could be so severe that even hearing about it devastates you. Cumulative, right on top of each other. This happened, this happened, this happened. Just like example, you can hear somebody saying, "Oh, I had a string of losses. My big mama lost a husband, lost a sister, lost a," familial, especially when it's older people. A lot of times it happens like that. And unfortunately, sometimes there's tragedy where maybe an accident claimed the lives of everybody that was in the car. Absent or inhibited. It's masked, but it's still there. So you're carrying a grief with you, but you're kind of almost acting like it's not there, but other people can see. They can notice. They can tell that at Thanksgiving every year, you're a little sad. Even though you try to play it off, you try to mask it, you're still a sad person at that time because that's when the loss took place. And that's just an example. Loss of hope, loss of what could have been. That also fits under disenfranchised because you were waiting on something, you were expecting something, and it didn't happen. Okay. And at the end, there is literature that goes with the slides. So if you want to have a breakdown, more detail, I can hand that to you at the end. And if you're online, those notes, I think I'm going to have them printable. I can't remember what I'm doing, but I'm just trying to give you the voiceover. So forgive me. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. All right. We are now in the clinical grief. Um, the last side, we talked about the different variations. This one, we're going to talk the clinical definitions. We're going to talk about my job and how it looks on this side. And I want to point out the structure because it's easy to miss. That's really two lists. The first four: prolonged grief disorder, traumatic grief, anticipatory grief, and disenfranchised grief. Those describe what caused it, the circumstance. For the second four: absent or inhibited, exaggerated, chronic, cumulative, those describe how it shows up and how it behaves over time. Two of those, exaggerated and chronic, weren't on the last slide. Add them if your people want a full picture. All right. Now, this is an invitation, not an assignment. Notice which ones sound like you. I'm not asking anybody to diagnose themselves. A label is a tool for getting the right help. It's not a verdict on who you are. So look at them and think about yourself. Whichever one it is, none of them come with a timeline. So again, there's the clinical type: prolonged grief, traumatic grief, anticipatory grief, disenfranchised grief. And then behavioral, there's absent or inhibited, exaggerated, chronic, or cumulative. All right, let's look deeper. We're going to get closer and closer into the variations. Now, anticipatory grief is mourning before the loss. I pulled this one out because my video that's here on the screen, I'm actually talking about my own personal experience. If you are sensitive, go ahead and get your tissue now. Crying may happen. If you have lost someone and you feel like you may be triggered by me talking about the potential loss, this would be a good time for you to skip this slide if you're watching from home or on the line online. If you're in class now, it's a good time to just take a break. No one will judge you. You can walk off. This video lasts about 10 minutes, so you can take your break now. If you can, if you feel as though it's too much for you, you can walk away. It's fine. I don't have a problem with that. So again, back to this. This video is going to break some things down because anticipatory grief is the one people don't recognize in themselves. If you're caring for an aging parent, if you're sitting with a diagnosis, if you're watching a relationship change permanently, if you know that it's not coming back, you're already grieving. And a whole lot of people feel guilty about that. Like grieving before somebody dies is disloyal. It's not. Let me say it plain. It's not disloyal. Anticipatory grief is grieving a loss that hasn't happened yet, but it's coming. It carries the same weight as grief after a death. And honestly, it lasts a lot longer. And again, this is me. This is my time. This is me sharing, and this is me being vulnerable because we all have to face loss. And typically, one of the hardest ones to deal with outside of the loss of a child is the loss of your parent. So here we go. Ooh-wee. Hi, how y'all doing?
I decided to add this video to the Grief Series collection, and the reason why it is that it is a demonstration of anticipatory grief. It's also grieving a loss of time, sense of purpose. It's also grieving a idea or a romanticized hope. So anticipatory grief is relating to my mother passing away in the future, and I'm preparing myself for the things that I have directly worked with people on who have grieved. People anticipate birthdays, celebrations, milestones, memories, things. And these are all things that tend to send my clients that have had loss through death into a horrible set of setbacks. Also, distress relating to depression, anxiety, panic, all surrounding impending birthdays, the anniversaries of death, things like that. I've also had to deal with depression related grief surrounding a loss of hope surrounding I was hoping that this was going to work out, or a plan that failed, or realizing that you don't have the capacity to do a thing that you've set your sights on. All of these things are highlighted in my discussion surrounding grief, loss. That's why I'm not classifying this as depression, because it's not depression, it's actually grief, but it's anticipatory, meaning I'm looking towards the future loss and I'm trying to make sure that I'm prepared, or also working through a couple things. So I'm going to also put the definition in here to try to keep this from being so long. Okay, back to the show.
This is the face of... Oh, it's been a day. I'll just say that. In a good way. And yes, we are chronicling the journey. If you're wondering what's going on with my eyes, they have cried profusely today. Because sometimes all I need is a safe space and a gentle nudge to help me not mask my feelings. Talked to my mom this morning. She's doing what she's supposed to be doing, living her life. At the latter end, and as a sensitivity master, yes, I'm sensitive. It's a lot. It's a whole lot. It's very complex. There's the feeling of knowing that she was there, but she was not able to demonstrate or show me the kind of love that I needed to let me know that somebody loved me in my life. And carrying years of anger, and also her poor choices that led to my abuse. Because she wasn't healed. She couldn't make good choices. I get that now, because the same has happened for me in a lot of things. So seeing my mother as a woman and not my mother anymore is a very different piece of this journey, which makes that part hard, because when you've gone through the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, the love, the hate, disgust, the absolute middle finger, I ain't fooling with you no more, to healing and taking my space and understanding that who I am and the way I'm set up, I'm not full of rage and vengeance and grudges. No. You gotta cross me really bad for me to cancel you in your existence on earth. And my mom, no matter how hard I try to do it, I can't. I'm not made out of that kind of stuff. And knowing that she's not going to ever be able to give me what I need, ain't going to never stop me from giving her what I want to give her. And it also won't stop me from loving her the way I desire to be loved. It's just hard because she's tough. And she won't admit she needs the help. I learned it from her master. And the goals that I set, part of my frustration is it does not make the money I needed to make. Because my mom, she needs some help. Not because she's sick, she just needs somebody to come inside the house and do it. That's a professional that's trained to help her do things the way they need to be done without the bias and not the mess or the frustration of the daughters. And I'm lightly mad too because I told my baby sister, I don't know why I say she's my baby sister as if there's anybody else, because I don't count them kids that man made. I told her some years back when I wasn't talking to my mom, I was like, look here. And it came from a place of ugliness. She's yours. Because what was fueling is like, you're her favorite, so you better take care of her. She ain't gonna do what I would do. And I'm mad because I just can't go take care of her. I don't care if she cuts me out. Because I need to know that when she leave Earth, that I'm not carrying anything. Yeah. That weighs me down just a bit. Because I'm at that age where one of these days it's going to be the last day. And I don't know if I want a phone call. Maybe I want to find her myself. Even though she couldn't take care of me the way that I needed, doesn't mean she doesn't deserve to get taken care of. And I want to do that for her. But I'm frustrated in the motherfucker because I don't have the money. Because if I could get on a plane right this minute and just go, I know my mama would say she needed help. She wouldn't even ask me to do nothing because she got too much pride. But I know she would be happy. And the sacrifice, the chasing of getting the money to make sure she provided well, I respect that now. And if her getting tickets for me to go see Michael Jackson means that was her way of showing me love, then she wins. That's big love right there. It may not look like what I wanted, but it's there. And I'm finally healed enough to finally be able to see. That's good enough. So yeah, that's where my feelings are. And I don't want to replace or put people in places because I tend to do that shit because it's the old trauma response of being isolated and feeling alone, and I feel people in and they don't belong in my life where I put them. And I realized it today. And I'm sorry to anybody that I don't talk to no more. You just don't fucking belong in my life, and it's not your fault. That's me. All right. Now that was a very emotionally charged video and a perfect look into what it looks like to grieve when somebody's still sitting right here on earth with you. What drives me now, though, just sharing and being vulnerable, and forgive me if I didn't mention earlier, I cuss. So if cussing bother you, as I would say back in my Christian days, pray for me. Anyway, what drives me now is not wanting to carry unfinished business when the phone rings. So I'm anticipating life ending because That's typically what happens when you get to a certain age. My mother's 81 years old. I can't see her being around for 200 years. So eventually her day will come to an end. It will be lovely, even though it sounds crazy. I would love to not be here. I would like to go first because I don't know if my little life can take it. Because as y'all can see, I'm very emotional. Okay. Yeah. So one of these days, it's going to be the last day, and I'm trying to prepare. And sometimes we do these things unconsciously. And that's why I keep telling people over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, say the thing while you still can. Whatever it is that needs to be said, even if that means you have to go and call somebody out, or you might have to bless somebody out, as people will say. You might have to go and cuss somebody out. But say it. Get it off of you, because when they're gone, they're gone. There's nothing you can do about it. And clinically, this is the pattern. Clients with earlier losses have their most severe setbacks around anticipated milestones. If somebody in the room is caring for a dying person right now, this one is going to land hard. Point them to the resources coming up and make yourself available after. So if you are, again, helping, caregiving, doing the things, the feelings that you're feeling, see if there is a way that you can process them now. Don't bury them. Don't suppress them. If you're sad, admit it, deal with it, find support, find a group. And I'll talk more about the things that you can find moving forward. Ooh-wee. Let's pause that. All right, let's go. Next video. Grief has no set timeline. I know I keep saying it over and over again, but I'm going to say it one more time. People want a number. How long is this going to last? I'm not going to give you one because there isn't one. Weeks, months, years. It comes back around. Holidays, anniversaries, big life events, or it just sits in the background as something you carry. The calendar does not help. Mother's Day forces celebrations on people who lost their mother, who never knew their mother, or who have a painful relationship with one who's still alive. That day is not neutral for everybody, and we act like it is. Here's the reassurance, though, and I want it clean. Grief does not lessen the intensity. The hurt softens. The person is not forgotten. I said that 3 times in the series on purpose, and I'll say it here too. You won't forget them, so you don't need to continue to hurt to keep them. Again, you won't forget them, so you don't need to continue to hurt to keep them. You know why? Because you won't forget them, so you don't need to keep being on the perpetual cycle of pain and hurt to honor them. Okay? Now, I think this is the part of the conversation that we need to go and take a little break and then come on back. Because why do we struggle to talk about loss? Why? We are bad at this, and it's cultural. Avoiding death is baked into how we live. And because we don't talk about it, we fumble it when it counts. We dismiss people's grief. We say things that wound, and we usually think we're helping. The one I keep coming back to, telling a mother who lost their child that they're in a better place. Only somebody who has never truly experienced loss says that to a mother. There's no better place than in her arms. At least you had them so long. It's time to move on. You don't seem that upset. All of that lands as a judgment every single time. Now, what actually works is presence over explanation. You could say something like, I don't have the right words. You could say, tell me about them. You could also say, I'm here, and there's no timeline on this. And then show up again next week when nobody asked you to. At the core of it, Do not make a grieving person manage your discomfort. That's not their job. Yeah. I'm talking about the people that get upset when they see somebody else crying, and instead of allowing the person to cry, you hurry up and try to stop them. That's about your discomfort. Let them cry. If they want to slide down the wall and fall out, let them. That might be what they need to do. Now, we want to talk about some stuff. Let's talk about some stuff. Here's a couple questions you can use. Are you an avoider when it comes to grief? Do you believe the person went somewhere or they just expired? Like, how do you see death? Are they still lingering in the shadows somewhere? Are they a spirit? How do you see it? Do you believe they live on in another form? There's no right answer. But what you believe shapes how you grieve. And most people have never been asked. So that's something you can quietly ponder. What do you believe about the loss? Because it definitely shapes how you see it. All right. Everybody's probably been wondering about this part. How does grief actually move? I've been telling you there's no timeline, and that's true. But grief does have a shape. And I want you to know it because knowing the shape is how you tell the difference between hurting and needing help. All right, here we go. You can write these down. They're on the screen. I think I have handouts. And if you're watching online, this is your handout. Okay. Let's start with acute grief right after the loss and for months. Shock, distress, sadness. You're not eating right. You're not sleeping. You can't concentrate. That is intense and it is normal. And it slowly comes down on its own. This stage does not automatically require treatment. Sometimes people just need to be allowed to grieve. Okay. Complicated grief. This is the one we were just talking about when it comes down to strained relationships and just awkward things. This is when those acute symptoms never let up. Years, sometimes. The loss still doesn't feel real. You're constantly yearning for them, or you feel guilty about even the idea of moving on. About 10% of people develop this after a loss. And I want to say that the important part is it's treatable. Psychotherapy works on this form. And finally, integrated grief. This is where you're headed and it's lifelong. You've accepted the reality. You've picked your life back up. That does not mean you don't miss them any less. It means you've learned to carry it. The acute waves will hit you around the holidays, the anniversary, the song. That's not you backsliding. The handout on this is the grieving process from Therapy Aid, and it's free. And at the end of the presentation, I will have all the resources listed where if you wanted to print them out later, you can. If you want to screenshot them, everything is sourced in empirical evidence as far as the references material. It's not heavily weighted in opinion, even though it sounds very opinionated. There is research backing most of everything that I've shared today. Okay, now let's look at the 4 tasks of mourning. There are several steps that the grieving process needs, but they don't fall in order. But let's just talk about them. All right, here's the stages. Number 1, before I name them, in any order, any pace, you will revisit them. This is not a checklist for you to finish and file away. Number 1, accepting or accept the reality of the loss. And that's 2 different accepts. Intellectually, you know. Emotionally is another matter entirely, and it takes longer. Part of this is recognizing the significance of what you lost and not minimizing it. Part 2, process the pain. Name the emotions, make sense of them, and then actually let yourself feel them instead of burying them. Burying works for a while. It always comes back up. Third, adjust to a world without them. That's practical. Somebody has to do what they used to do. And it's identity. You were somebody's daughter, somebody's wife, somebody's person. Who are you now? 4, remember them while moving forward. Make a place for them in your heart that still leaves room for new people. That's the balance. And that's the same thing. I close here. There are a couple worksheets for this task of mourning and my stages of grief if somebody wants to write out how each stage has actually hit them. Now that we walked through several descriptions and definitions and talking about grief at length and the experiences, I think everybody's probably at the place of, okay, when do I need to go get some help? How do I know I need help? What is going on? All right. People always ask, when is it time to get help? Well, let me tell you how I actually assess this. The question is not, is the person sad? Sad is expected. The question is whether it's affecting your ability to function and how much. 3 things I'm looking for as a therapist. Duration. How long have the symptoms been going on? Grief that stretches well past the loss get my attention. The intensity. How bad is it on a given day? And is it easing at all, even a little? And the functional impact. Can you get back to reasonable day-to-day living? Can you get to work, taking care of people, sleeping, staying connected to somebody? When grief goes past a certain duration and impairs functioning, it's diagnosable. Again, when grief goes past a certain duration, and of course, like I mentioned before, it's different based on the relationship, the impact, what it was, and how it impairs, how it gets in the way of you doing your regular life, the life that you had before the loss. That's when the diagnosis comes in the room. And most people, for the most part, are not diagnosable, just need some support. All right. Now, if it goes too far, prolonged grief disorder may be what we're looking at. And listen, I know a lot of us don't want a label. Fine. I don't need you to accept the label. The symptoms are observable either way, and that's what we're treating. Support groups and therapy help most when grief is debilitating and long lasting. And here's something that comes up in treatment constantly. Grief surfaces. Mental health stuff that was never named before. Yes, grieving can trigger and expose. So if there was something laying dormant or something you've been suffering with, grief can exacerbate the symptoms and make it show up. So an example is if you were already an anxious person, you had a significant loss that was traumatic and unexpected, it can intensify your anxiety to the place where it looks disordered and now you need treatment. And you might have needed before, but definitely now, right? And just because that comes up, that's not a setback. That's actually good information for you. And it's good that it was brought forward because now you can also take care of that part as well in treatment. If you are having thoughts of hurting yourself and you can't function, you can reach out now, not later, not after the holidays, right now. And there's ways that we can manage that. I've given that information up front. And there's no need to be embarrassed or ashamed. If you have to identify yourself privately, that's fine as well. There are crisis lines available. They are here for you to use at any time. There's no judgment. 988 is the suicide and crisis line. Blah, 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 blah. One more time. 988 is the suicide and crisis lifeline. You can call or text at 3 numbers. It's free, it's confidential, it's 24/7. Just press 1. Again, the number is 988. Press 1 for veterans, 2 for Spanish. You can also chat 988lifeline.org. the crisis line. Text home to 741-741. SAMHSA is the mental health national hotline. It's 800-662-4357. And if you're in imminent danger, immediate danger, at risk of harming yourself, 911. Always. A side note, if you're able during that time, you may request mental health support, wellness check as well. You can also identify if you've already been diagnosed. You can tell them that you are having a mental health crisis. It's not crime, it's mental health. Okay. Uh, if we've made it this far, this is the introduction to my 12-week path through grief. Um, it just highlights what the sessions will be like. Weeks 1 through 4, we're going to understand. Weeks 5 through 8, we're going to learn to cope. And weeks 9 through 12, we're going to rebuild. Everything up to now has been understanding. This is where you get something to do, because understanding by itself is just the beginning. It's not enough. And it doesn't get anybody out of bed. So it doesn't help you. Just understanding. You have got to get some practical application. Now, I built a 12-week course based on the DSM-5 TR. That is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health Conditions, Disorders. And the clinical side, cognitive behavioral therapy, is typically the modality that we look through. We've got 3 phases, as I mentioned. Weeks 1 through 4 is understanding grief, loss, and bereavement, the grief response, symptoms and variations, complicated and prolonged grief with the red flags, and cognitive distortions. The should statements, the guilt, self-blame that keeps people stuck. Tools are taught, thought records, symptom diaries, ABC worksheets. Week 5 through 8, we're going to learn to cope, emotional regulation, breathing, grounding, behavioral activation, which is how we push back on withdrawal, guilt, regret, unfinished business, and that includes writing a letter to the person you lost. Memory and meaning making, a memory box, a collage, something you can put your hands on. And then weeks 9 through 12, rebuild. This is the triggers and the anniversaries with actual coping scripts, so you're not walking into them cold. Rebuilding identity, roles, and strengths and inventory. Social supports, putting together a group of people that can help you navigate when you're having your struggles. People that don't trigger you, as well as folks that have a good deal of empathy to help you process, and keep you from being isolated. Also, practicing growth after grief, relapse prevention, and a letter to your future self. Along the way, you'll get weekly video lessons, downloadable worksheets, and guided meditations if you're interested in processing through that. I have not started an actual grief group, but that's down the road. But working in therapy, this will be a course of treatment if you need it that way. And I'm putting together a group. Community forums, guided meditations, ask a therapist. That would be me. You'll have those things available to you. Tracking sadness, concentration, guilt, connection, hopelessness. Um, and this activity, this 12-week, is not an alternative to therapy. It's a part of it. It's also support. You can use it if you're not in treatment. You can work with groups. You can also potentially receive training later on and share it with another group or host it yourself. Just depends on the severity and the deepness, but that's stuff that we can talk about later. This is a trauma-informed process, and it's culturally sensitive and inclusive. So it's for everybody, not just one set of somebodies. Even though I represent heavily for our somebodies, it doesn't mean that everybody can't participate. All people experience grief and loss, so all people could benefit. And if you're wondering, seeing a licensed professional is and will always be your best option. Well, you guys have survived this presentation. If you are viewing it at home online, thank you for working with me on my first actual PowerPoint. Forgive me for not being able to do a lot of editing. So what you see is what you get. I want to thank you for sitting through difficult commentary. I hope you got a couple laughs in there. I hope you learned a lot. So I want to close. Moving on is not forgetting. You can keep living. You can have new experiences. You can build new relationships. And you can do all of that while still loving the person that you lost. Those things were never in competition. The goal of grieving was never to forget them. The goal is to decide how you want to remember them while you keep going. So here's what I'm leaving with you. One thing this week, one person you'll reach out to, or one resource off that last side you'll actually look into. Just one. Thank you for sitting through a hard topic. Everybody doesn't do that. Again, the crisis lines are 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. You can call or text. It's free. Confidential, 24/7. Press 1 for veteran, 2 for Spanish. Chat at 988lifeline.org. Crisis text line, text HOME, HOME, to 741-741. Or for SAMHSA, National Helpline, 1-800-662-4357. And if there's an immediate danger, 911. Thank you again. These are the sources that are available for your further reading. They are here and they are listed. Take your time, scribble all over things, because I want you to have resources at all reaches of your disposal. Again, this list is detailing all the reference material that was provided here. If you are into that sort of thing, you want to look deeper into it, the resources are right here. Thank you again. You have a great, wonderful, and rest of your day.